Welcome to DAX Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you guys for joining us on another edition of DAX Machina. Hope you guys are doing good tonight. Hope you had an awesome Halloween. We had a blast last night playing Bigfoot. Robbie and I kept getting killed. Noah survived, except for getting killed by his own trap that one time. But if you stuck around until the end, did finally manage to kill that thing. Oh, that game is tough. So we're definitely going to be playing that again. Hopefully next time we'll get Doc involved. Robbie, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. I was kind of struggling this morning when the alarm went off, staying up to 1 o'clock, but I had a ball. That was fun.
We definitely had a ball. I can't wait to do it again. Noah's talked about it all day. He's like, that was so fun. We got to do that again.
Yeah. We got to get you a better computer so we can do some art too, because I think that would be fun too.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I built a writing machine, not a gaming machine.
Yeah, I know. I did the opposite, so. But yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that.
Well, folks, my buddy Keith is having some technical issues. Hopefully, he'll be able to get that sorted and be joining us here shortly. So until then, Robbie and I are just gonna talk about stuff. Heard you had a little bit of excitement yesterday, Robbie. I heard you got into a bit of a pursuit.
Yeah. I chased a stolen vehicle. He stole a truck, and well, let me back up. First, he went to a local college and stole a gator, drove the gator to a Dollar General, saw a truck that somebody just got out of to run to throw something away, and decided, I think I'm going to take that. Jumped in a truck and took off. So he went through one of our municipalities in the county, and they chased him for about 2 seconds and decided they were going to do it. So me and the two guys I was working with, we knew he was coming in from that city, and we decided there was about 3 ways he could come in. So each one of us took a different way, and luck would have it, he went by me. So I jumped him, and he was it was a 2007 Dodge 3500 dually, and I didn't know you could handle them things the way he was driving that thing like he stole it.
Well, literally. He did. So
yeah, but but it started out in Kens County, in Anderson County. That's where the truck was stolen from. I don't know if he's in the chat already or not, but it was that chase started at 10 o'clock in the morning, and by the time it was time for me to go home yesterday at about 4, well, it was past time for me to go home, but by the time 4:30 rolled around, I was just finishing up with my paperwork from everything.
So hell, it does make a day go by pretty fast.
Yeah, you don't miss them days, though, do you?
No, I don't. There are things about it I do miss. Paperwork and all the political hoops to jump through. I don't miss that so much.
Yeah.
But I do miss a lot of the good times with the people I worked with.
Oh yeah, and then that was fun yesterday. I mean, I don't get to work with one of the guys because he's on opposite rotation. He came in to work with us yesterday, which is a good thing, because if not, it'd just been me and my partner, because the 2 lieutenants were both off yesterday. Chief was tied up with a bunch of kids that were from the daycare that were doing their trick or treat thing in town. So basically, it would have just been me and my partner. But luckily, the other K9 handler who had decided, instead of just, David, we caught him. We found him a little bit later, and then nobody got hurt.
Best result possible.
Yeah. Now he did crash into a car, and in turn caused that car to crash into a house. But it could have been a lot worse the way he was driving, especially that big dually.
Well, property can be fixed or replaced. Can't replace losing somebody.
You too, Noah? Thanks, Mike. Yeah, it was but when you get to our age and how long we've been in law enforcement, stuff like that, you don't want to do it every single day, because when I was younger, I used to beg for people to run from me so I could chase them. And now it's just like, oh, please don't run, please don't run, please don't run. But as soon as he went by me, he gave me the old, and I said, "Oh, here we go."
Yeah, you can tell the difference between a first or second year cop and a 20-year cop. When somebody says he's fixing to fight, first or second year cop's like, and then like a 20-year cop's like, ah, crap, here we go again.
Yep, and that was my. I was like, "Ah, boy, here we go." And my dispatch called me on the phone after everything was all over. She was like, "You sound like you were just like doing a normal traffic stop." Like, oh well, I'm 10-0. Like, oh hum.
Gotta stay calm. Screaming into the mic doesn't help anybody.
No.
Then you'd get some guys that just get excited and will scream into the mic over anything. 415 traffic stop. You're like, oh, I'd get ready to just punch it. Like, gotta get to this guy. Wait a minute. He's just making a traffic stop.
Yeah, we got some of those around too.
Yeah, we had guys that would call literally everything on the radio like it was an officer down. You would just about crap yourself and spill coffee every time they would call in a plate.
Yeah.
Casey Calloway says, DA, do you miss the rush? I miss elements of it. I don't miss the 3 and 4 days later still hurting. I don't miss the piles and piles of paperwork, and then I don't miss the pink slips that show up in your mailbox when you got to go to court over all of it.
Yep.
Don't miss any of that.
Because a judge called me today, or actually Guthrie, the sergeant, he called, says, "Hey, judge needs you to go down to her office. You got to redo some of those warrants because it was the end of the day. I was tired. So messed up on a few of the warrants. I had to go back and rewrite the warrant affidavits. And God almighty, I'm too old for this stuff." And it's all going to general sessions because the possession of stolen vehicle, because of the price of the value of the vehicle, bumped it up. So it's a felony. So it's going to general session. So who knows when it'll ever go to court.
It's one of those things that could go to court in a month, or it could, show up in your mailbox in 2 years. Even I've been out since early 2020 because of my back, and even as most recently this last summer, I was still getting subpoenas for crap that was just starting to go to court.
Well, as backed up as our judicial circuit is, it ain't gonna go to court. They'll probably, honestly, as backed up as they are, they'll probably work a plea bargain out with him. But like I said, he just the day before that he just got out of jail, out of the sheriff's office in Pickens. Just got out of jail that afternoon before that. So
apparently he missed it.
Yep, safe to say he didn't learn his lesson.
So what did you think about playing Bigfoot last night?
I had a ball. That's fun.
I
apparently suck at that game, but I had fun.
Well, I wasn't much better. Noah's had to carry both our corpses at one point to try to get us resurrected.
Yep.
Noah says there's 2 new T-shirts ideas out of that. He said there's Great DA's Ghost and Weekend at Robbie's.
Yep. Yeah, I did look kind of like Bernie when you were carrying me. I was like,
it was so fun though. Keith is texting me. He's having issues getting the link to open. Hopefully he'll be able to get that issue resolved, because it's one of those things that this for some reason Talk Studio is very browser choosy. There's some browsers it just won't work with. So hopefully he gets that taken care of. But keep our fingers crossed.
Ryan just said something about us. So y'all played Bigfoot without me. That's it. I'm raiding your fridges as punishment. Well, jump on with us.
John Wayne. What it is? He said John Wayne Gates says, "Pressure Time DA. When's the next book coming out?" I'm hoping to have another one out before the end of the year. I've had kind of a stumble this last month or so. I thought I would have had more done by now, but I've had a lot on my plate, and I've been stressed out and not really getting much writing done. Kay Bauer says, "Where's Doc?" Doc's had to work late in the shop tonight. He he's got a bunch of orders stacked up and needed to get those out, so he won't be with us.
Yeah, because he's flying out Friday to come to South Carolina, so he had a bunch of stuff he's got to get done before he goes.
He says I should have stayed away from the bear. I think I tried. There he is. There he is.
Penny wants to know if we're going to do a game night again soon.
We need to do one. We'll definitely make that happen. Keith, how you doing, brother?
Better now that I'm able to get in.
Heck yeah. I was starting to wonder.
I was starting to wonder myself.
This, for some reason, Talk Studio seems to be really finicky when it comes to certain browsers. It won't work with what is that one that Safari won't work at it all with it at all. It won't work with Internet Explorer. It seems to like Firefox and Chrome the best.
Oh yeah.
So how have you been, man?
Working, tired. Putting together my morning show for tomorrow. Trying to work out the details of what we're going to be discussing, and I think we've got it narrowed down to the Variety article that came out today about the self-mutilation of Marvel Studios.
They kind of did that to themselves, exactly.
It is it's bad. It's about as bad as what Lucasfilm's going through, but in my mind, a little bit worse. Because unlike Lucasfilm, who tried to at least try to make it seem like they weren't doing anything wrong, Kevin Feige and Marvel didn't care. And when you have a policy where you've decided not to hire anyone new that is a fan of or familiar with the comics, that's a problem.
Right.
And I just think that if the main purpose of Marvel Studios when it was created was to be the film division of Marvel Comics and to make Marvel Comics really the centerpiece of what they're doing, to basically expand the reach of Marvel Comics. So if you've gotten it to the point where you think you don't need to do that anymore, that pretty much would say that you are not living up to why you were created in the first place.
I would
and
agree.
It starts to affect your bottom line. And I will tell people this. If you've noticed, all of the really creative people that helped Marvel are not there anymore. They're not.
Yeah.
And Marvel's struggling. And has been since the end of Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that before we went on air. That's exactly what I said.
And when the Russo brothers are now telling what was going on behind the scenes, and you've already had the interview with Robert Downey Jr., he's pretty much said he's done. Okay? I'm not saying that he's kind of thinking, no, he's done. He's made so much money. He's done. So now there are articles being floated around on the internet about how there's the idea that they could bring back all of the original Avengers and do an Avengers movie.
Yeah.
And the article that's being floated is that, hey, they could do that, but it would cost too much money. Okay. So let me get this straight. Since the beginning of Phase 4, you've been going out and making movies that are way more expensive than they need to be. Then doing all of these reshoots, trying to fix stuff in post. You're basically adding on another almost $250 million to whatever budget for every individual film that you've had since the end of Endgame. And you're trying to float that it would be too expensive to get the original cast back. Here's an idea. Scrap everything they're doing right now and focus on one movie.
Make something
what they did in the first place.
Yeah, just make an Avengers film with all the original Avengers, and if this is the final movie for this version of Marvel, so be it. Put the money in there, spend the extra $450 million, which you knew you were going to waste anyway. Get the Russo brothers back so Kevin doesn't have to deal with Joss Whedon again, and make the movie. I'm really at a loss as to why this is such a hard thing, but it's the entertainment industry.
Because Kevin Feige, that would be Kevin Feige admitting that he was wrong.
Unfortunately,
this seems to be the formula with Disney, and I hate to throw rocks at at somebody that's already fallen, but look what they did to Star Wars. I mean, they were handed a cash printing machine.
Yes,
and like you and I were talking at VisionCon the other day. It's not what they did was wrong. What they did was they ran off more fans than they attracted. And you can't do that. Now they could have used those exact same characters and just written it well. I mean, you and I both said, what was it? Was it The Force Awakens was just a New Hope? It was a New Hope. It was it. You barely even changed the names in it.
Yeah.
I will go as far to say that most diehard fans, if they had done one thing, just one thing, and that one thing is, if Luke Skywalker, when he finally came out there to that big battle, if they'd had him do some kind of earth-shattering thing, most diehard fans would have forgiven that whole entire flop of a 3-movie series, other than him coming out there and being a hologram or a projection or force projection.
The thing is they could have kept those same characters. They could have kept Rey. They could have kept Darth Tantrum or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
Kylo Ren.
Yeah, they could have kept all of those characters, and had they written them well and paid tribute, not paid lip service, paid tribute to what came before, they would have built on what they had. But instead, they came in with the decision to destroy everything that came before.
Yep. Well, there's one scene they could have had that would have given them almost another $500 million at the box office. To put Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, and Lando in one scene together.
Yeah, that one would have been the fan moment.
Yeah.
Keith, I know we've kind of jumped off and took off running.
Yes.
Before we go any farther, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and tell us about your channel and what it is you guys do? Because we haven't really had a chance to have you on before, which is my fault. I should have had you on a long time ago. But tell everybody about what it is you do, and we've been throwing your link up across the chat. So, since we're trying to send some folks your way to like, share, and subscribe. So tell us about your channel and what it is you do, brother.
I am Keith Moncrief, co-founder, co-host, co-insane person for the channel known as Pop Culture Minefield with Gary Cassell. And for the last 5 years, we've been talking about all things pop culture in terms of film, in terms of television, in terms of literature, comics, and everything. And we've had a really fun time. Two guys who just wanted to hang out and have the kind of conversations that one would normally have either at their favorite comic book store or even on the floor of a convention. And we just wanted to make it possible to do that. And we have had an incredible time. We have now, on YouTube, we have launched, I think, 5 shows, and all dealing with different things. And for me, I have a show every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Central called Morning Coffee with Keith. And we just sort of, it's my opportunity to just sort of voice opinions and discuss stories. But as a whole, we are just a group of fans because we've grown. We've added John and Martin and Gary's girlfriend Anima, and all of us have a just really good time just doing this, because really you shouldn't do this unless you're going to have a good time with it.
Exactly.
And
I cannot agree with you more there, brother. If you're not enjoying it, why are you doing it?
that's right. We have had a great 5 years. We have been lucky enough to have some amazing guests. At the top of that list, I'd have to say all of the comic book related guests that we've had, all of the art guests, like even Sarah Frazetta, granddaughter of Frank Frazetta, came on. Love her. Great young lady. I think going back over all of the episodes that we've done, even I'm amazed that we've.
I'm blown away by some of the guests you guys have had over the years.
Look, as I told you at VisionCon, okay, let me make one thing perfectly clear. You know, I am a straight up just nerd. And so is Gary. But Gary's a nerd.
I am too.
Same here.
Gary's a nerd, though, that has done a few things.
Because Keith, I'll show you what I was just showing DA before. My daughter gave me this for Father's Day last year. So
Now,
I'm a nerd too.
Now you see, Gary's actually done stuff in the industry and has worked for in comics and has had film ideas, and he has built an incredible career, and just introduced me to so many people. There are people that I have met that it's just been fascinating hanging out with Gary, getting to know him as a person, and being proud to share time with someone who is just so much fun. Because I couldn't continue to do this if I wasn't having fun with him. And again, I never thought I would ever be able to go and be a part of certain shows like Midnight's Edge and meet those guys. Excuse me. Getting an opportunity to know, meet and know the late great Mikey Sutton, who again, his nickname for Gary and I were Lethal Weapon. And
are you getting too old for this shit?
Oh, long time ago. Long time ago. And to meet people like Robert Meyer Burnett and getting a chance to know him and well enough to consider, I tell people he's my other twin brother. Because I've got a twin brother, and I've been trying to get him on the show for a few years, and having Robert Meyer Burnett on was kind of like having my brother on. So he's my other twin brother. But it has been one of the highlights of my life to be able to do something like this, and to be on with people such as yourself, and to be thought of in the way that people seem to think of me, which is still, I still haven't figured that part out. I'm a guy that knows a lot of useless information.
My wife tells me that all the time. She tells me I'm a fountain of useless trivia.
I that doesn't stop me from feeling old sometimes. As I told you at VisionCon, this year being the 50th anniversary of the $6 Million Man, and that just seems like yesterday. I was just sitting in front of my TV watching that, and
love that show.
50 years. That's old people talk right there. That's 50 years.
I ain't old. I refuse to get old.
See, there you go. See, that's the proper attitude. But my facial hair seems to be saying something different.
Well, mine would too, but I darken mine.
You're a smart man. You're a smart man. But no, I'm a guy that enjoys a lot of this stuff. I've had the pleasure to work on a few films. I have worked for the Sci-Fi Channel and technically NBC Universal. I have worked for CMT Cable. I have worked for the Discovery Network. I've done projects for all kinds of people. shot commercials for the Branson Convention, Visitors and Convention Bureau and stuff like that. You know, I've worked on movies, and you know, all of that while raising a family here. And now I think as I've made that transition to the latter half of my life and have started getting into those, you know, grandfatherly duties, doing this is something that basically keeps me out of trouble.
I was reading just recently that I can't remember who it was. It was a famous rock and roll singer. I can't remember who it was, but they said that no, it wasn't rock and roll. It was the guy that played the dude, Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
He said everything up until 60 years old is just practice. So that's my new philosophy. That means I'm still practicing. I ain't hit 60 yet, so
love Jeff Bridges.
I do too.
Bridges.
The dude's my idol.
I still can't believe that they are going to go ahead and shoot another Tron movie and not have him involved.
Yeah,
you know,
I've got mixed emotions about that concept too.
I get trying to expand the universe, but Jeff Bridges has to be there somewhere. You know? And again, I'm not saying it was a perfect film, but I enjoyed the heck out of Tron Legacy.
I did too.
It was better than a lot of the continuation stuff that they've put out.
Right. So
thank you for the super chat, Robert.
It is look, it's not that I have never known a time since I've watched movies and television where Hollywood wasn't borrowing or readapting or rebooting something.
Right.
Okay. Hollywood
Whether
has
they needed
never
to or not.
Yeah. Hollywood's never been a place where original ideas have been in abundance, and that's fine. You know, I tell people all the time, you know, the 1939 Wizard of Oz film was Hollywood's second version of the Wizard of Oz that they committed to film. You know, Cleopatra. You know, everybody knows the film from the 60s. That same producer and director had another version that he did years before that. So, I mean, remaking things, rebooting things, telling another version of the same story, even by the same creator, that's nothing new. Okay?
Yeah, look how many versions of Dracula or Frankenstein or the Mummy are out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so just my only thing is just make it good.
Right.
Okay, just make it good. That's all that you need to worry about. Is it good? Is it going to be worth my money and time to leave my house to go to the movie theater and see what you got? You know, if it's not, then, you know.
Well,
one of the things that's driven me. Oh, sorry, Garby. Go ahead, buddy.
I was just gonna say, like, I think it's kind of a split reaction, like Benicio del Toro's remake of The Wolfman.
Mm-hmm.
You either hear people either really liked it or they really hated it.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it.
I thought it was. I mean, yeah, they changed some stuff, but there again, they didn't change so much of it that it completely changed the story, made the story horrible or anything like that. You know, they added some stuff that kind of goes along with the times and makes it a little bit, even though it was a period piece, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't understand why people hate on that movie so much. I mean,
the purists will go into any remake expecting essentially the original verbatim.
But
but you've got to go into remakes expecting it to stand on its own merit.
Look at remakes.
If you go in expecting what came before, you're always going to be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Look at remakes like we talked about earlier before Keith got on. You know, like the Nightmare on Elm Street remake with Jackie Earl Haley.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That was horrible. Hated it. Hated the remake. I like Jason Mears.
I think there were good
Jason Voorhees or Derek Mears as Jason Voorhees.
Mm-hmm.
But I hated what, you know, and we've talked about this. You take away the mystique when you change too much stuff. Rob Zombie totally destroyed Michael Myers' mystique in his Halloween remake.
Yeah.
But the Wolfman, the story itself, although there were some changes, like his dad being the one that changed him, not just some
Random guy.
random gypsy son that you never really got to know.
Yeah.
But that, to me, that added to the character development of, it wasn't just his dad trying to kill him. It was, it just kind of reversed the script a little bit. But the thing is, when you look at something like Benicio del Toro's remake of The Wolfman versus the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, there's no comparison. And I mean, Rick Baker took pictures of the original Lon Chaney Wolfman and just updated it and made it look more and they didn't do a whole lot of CGI. They did a lot of practical effects. They took their time and they acted like they cared. It's like you said, they made it good, and in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah,
and that you could tell they cared about it.
Yes.
It wasn't just slapping something on a commodity that was already there. That they, okay, we're gonna make some money off this because it's the Wolfman.
That's the way it should be. I mean, that's what you've described. You could also be talking about Bram Stoker's Dracula. You know,
yep, exactly. It's very good movie. I like that movie.
I think Gary Oldman is awesome.
Oh, everybody's great in that film, but for me, it was great because
except Keanu's accent.
I'll give the guy a hard time, but I will say this: out of everybody in that cast, he's the only one still operating at a high level right now.
That's very true.
But Keanu was fresh off of Bill and Ted when that movie came out, and I spent half of that movie waiting for him to go, "You're totally the Prince of Darkness, dude."
Hello, Dracula.
Dracula.
Whoa. It is difficult to be able to cater to the horror fans. Everybody has their, every fan group, every genre has that group that that is a part of what they do. Horror fans, though, in my opinion, aren't really that difficult. Just make it good. Right. Seriously, just make it good. And if you're gonna be scary, but just make it good.
I think me personally, I think one of the biggest problems with modern horror is an over-reliance on special effects and jump scares.
Yes.
They've gotten completely lazy when it comes to the writing.
That's it. That's it.
I just we had that same conversation the other day, DA. That's exactly what I was about to say. You look at the way John Carpenter did the original Halloween. There was hardly any blood. Music played a big role.
Is critical. The right music can make or break a scene.
Camera angles, lighting, that stuff is almost like a dying art form now.
Yeah.
Well, look at the original Kolchak the Night Stalker. 1972 to 1974, the special effects were beyond cheesy, but the writing was so freaking good.
And
the casting was excellent. Like I remember as a kid, one of the things that scared me the most as a kid was that episode, The Spanish Moss Murders, and you barely saw the creature until the end.
And that's the thing about it. What is brought down. I don't mean to keep harping on these guys, but what has brought down Disney is just dumb mistakes and spending way more money than you need to make a lot of this stuff.
Well, they own everything, so they don't care about anything.
Right.
There's no margin for them to. I mean, if Marvel tanks, they don't care. They've got everything else too that they're bringing in money on.
Their mistake was assuming slapping their name on it would instantly make it make money.
Yes. And that's very lazy. Look, I was saying this the other day on a show. Disney owns, when they bought Fox, that means Disney owns Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now,
Buffy's a Disney princess now?
Basically, yes.
But then again, so is Corporal Klinger.
There you go. But here's the thing. If there is one IP that a majority of the people who are working for Disney seem to either reference or have looked to, it's Buffy. So my question to Disney is this: why aren't you guys doing anything with it? You've got Buffy, you've got the Predator, you've got the Alien, heck, you've got Firefly.
Right.
You've got all of these IPs that you guys are basically doing nothing with. Nothing at all. And you're spending money like it's going out of style. Or in certain cases, just very badly. I mean, no wonder Nelson Peltz wants to basically jump on the board and start whacking some heads. You know, you guys are asking for this behavior because you're not good at what you're doing right now.
Right.
Your job when you run a business that size is to make money for the shareholders.
That is your sole business.
That's right. Once you stop doing that, then really, what are you doing? You're not working for the shareholders when you're making mistakes like, making a movie that you make it next to impossible to actually make a profit for, i.e., Episode 9, which still boggles my mind of how you could take a Star Wars film and spend so much money on it that you make it next to impossible to actually make a profit.
Well, when diehard fans say they like the middle three better, that's a problem.
That is a problem.
Because those same fans were ready to kill people over those movies about how stupid they were.
Take all the politics out of it. Take all of the swapping characters around. Take all of that out, and what the critical drinker refers to as the message. Take all of that out, and you still are faced with horrible writing.
Mm-hmm. And
horrible writing could have fixed a lot of that if they'd have just had good writers.
That's the thing, though. Everything has gotten so... It's not just politics. It's the fact that it is way too much just nepotism. Nepotism's always been a part of Hollywood, but it is
very true.
Radically out of control now, to the point where it's costing you money. And when you are... There have been times where certain films have embarrassed Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And by embarrassed, I mean have actually been really successful when everybody in Hollywood was saying that movie was going to fail. Or nobody was thinking that film was going to be what it was. When you look at Joker, I was a relatively cheap movie to make compared to all the other films that have been made over the last 5 to 10 years. Okay, you spend $65 million on a movie, and you make $1 billion.
That math adds up,
big time. I don't see the logic in making a sequel, especially as a musical. But you know what? If your budget's going to be right around that, make all you want. Whether or not I like it or not, that doesn't mean anything. Just keep doing that. But that was the same thing for the first Deadpool film. That was a relatively cheap movie to make.
And they all said, "Oh, that's not going to make any money."
Yeah, well, they were concentrating on the next movie after that, and that was going to be Channing Tatum's movie. He was going to be what mutant character was he going to be?
Oh, Gambit.
Wasn't he going to be Gambit?
Yeah, that was going to be Gambit.
Gambit.
And they were going to spend like $150 million on that. So you spend about $70 million making a Deadpool movie, and then you announced in an article, that you're still going to spend $150 making a Gambit movie. How do you justify that? I mean, after watching what Deadpool did,
right?
That's part of the reason why Fox went out of business. You can't. This is a non-sustainable model.
Right.
And when you look at things like, again, the Star Wars franchise, when you look at the Star Trek franchise, that's another mistake. It's all of this stuff is connected by people that are just going out and spending money like there's no tomorrow. And then who are surprised because audiences don't come out in droves to support the film the way that they really needed them to because they overspent.
Right.
You know, Benicio del Toro. I think the guy's talented. I think he made a mistake in not doing the second JJ movie.
Yeah.
Okay, because to me, that's inspired casting to have Benicio del Toro be Khan Noonien Singh.
Yeah.
To skip that movie again, so he could go make The Last Jedi. That's a money decision. It's not about a quality decision. That's a money decision.
Mm-hmm. And he really didn't have. I mean, he had but that movie would have happened without that character or without him playing that character.
Yes. To have used the excuse that he doesn't make those kinds of movies and skipping Star Trek, and then you turn around and you make The Last Jedi, to money. Look, I give him all kinds of credit. He is an Academy Award winning actor, but I'm telling you right now, you should have played Khan. You should have.
It would have been a better role for him.
Oh,
because Benedict Cumberbatch I love Benedict Cumberbatch as an actor, but as it was eventually explained, JJ personally didn't want him in the role. When Benicio decided to not take the role, Paramount stepped in and said, get Benedict Cumberbatch. That's who they put in that role. And I still think Benicio del Toro would have made a fine Khan going up against that cast. That's a movie, that's a franchise in and of itself to have him as Khan going up against that cast. But he decided he just wanted to get paid to basically make an overglorified cameo because that character really doesn't do very much.
Yeah.
He's not on the screen for that long.
And he double crosses them, and anybody could have played that part.
Yeah, anybody could have played that part. Versus being Khan. Going up against Chris Pine as Captain Kirk.
Which I will say that I do like Chris Pine's Captain Kirk.
Oh, all those actors are great. No, I got no problem with any of the actors. Look, even on the show, I will say on this, I often say in our shows, I have no problem with actors. If I have a problem with an actor, I'll tell you. My problem is that the writers and way too often the producers are the problem. They are the problem. Because the quality of writing is so bad. These people are stealing money is what they're doing. They're so bad. I mean, I could do a better job blindfolded trying to type backwards.
I would love to have the right studio approach me for the rights to my books. I would bend over backwards to produce anything they wanted.
See, and the kind of deal that they had for The Expanse, that's a great example of a pair of authors who were given the opportunity to bring their book to life with a group of producers and writers who got it. The Expanse, in my opinion, is one of the best science fiction shows of the last 20 years. And in my opinion,
it was really good.
Is on the list for one of the greatest science fiction shows of all time. And one of the best.
Certainly in the conversation.
Oh, gosh. That show was so good. And you wanted more. And again, to this day, I'm still trying to figure out with Amazon. Because I know you would rather have more episodes of a really badly done Tolkien series than to have more episodes of The Expanse. I'm still trying to figure that one out, you know.
Well, then you get into the problem when you have studios that want a director, and like classic example, I'm a big Godzilla fan, so I was pumped about Godzilla 1998 when they first started talking about it.
Yes.
And then Roland Emmerich gets attached to the program or to the project, somebody who doesn't care to know, doesn't want to know, doesn't want to. I'm gonna redo this and make this my way, the way I want it. And there's just that's why when Toho came back on and they did what they did to that one to that in Godzilla Final Wars, the remake where they had the real Godzilla take it out in like 5 seconds, knocked it through the what's that big amphitheater in Australia?
The Sydney Opera House.
Yeah, threw him through that Sydney Opera House in like 5 seconds. Well, that's what Toho thinks of Godzilla 1998.
Well, and that's the thing. When you look at the situation at Netflix, and what you had was the show One Piece, was just killing it. That show's just killing it. You know, that show is not only good, it is creating new fans for that property. Okay. A year ago, you had Cowboy Bebop, and it didn't work. It was just bad. Well, the difference was for Cowboy Bebop, they decided that they weren't going to listen to the creator of Cowboy Bebop, that they were just going to make it the way that they wanted to. And it did badly. They decided to bring in the creator of One Piece, had him work with the production, and it wasn't just a ceremonial title. This guy was able to have a lot of control. And look at the success of that show on Netflix. So there is something to be said for allowing creatives and creators to be involved with your production, whether you're talking Harry Potter or One Piece or anything really.
Well, I think you can draw a parallel to something that goes on every day in real life. If you look at the WWE and look at how Vince McMahon has been in control forever.
Yeah.
And how it was doing this. And then when all that stuff happened, he went out and Triple H and Stephanie kind of took over. It shot back up. And then when the big merger happened with the WWE and UFC, and they wanted Vince to be the figurehead of the company, and he came back for a little bit, it started going back down again because Vince wanted to do it his way. Mm-hmm. Vince knows what the people want. Forget that we have a voice. He knows what we want. So, but now it's back to Triple H having 99.9% creative control, and it's back up again because he listens to people. That's what the problem you get in Hollywood is they know what we want. We're too stupid to know what we want. They know what we want, and they put out what they think we want, and that's one of the biggest problems in my opinion.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Keith. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it'd be the same thing if I decided the next book I released to kill off all the main characters in my Wild Hunt series. Mm-hmm. I could do that, but I'm going to have some explaining to do.
Well, unless that's really what you want to do. Look, to me, one of the greatest cases where a creator didn't get what they wanted was what happened with Sherlock Holmes. Reichenbach Falls was to have been the end of the character because that's what he wanted. It wasn't. He could have continued to write those stories and make adventures, but he wanted to end the character a particular way. And that's fine. Mm-hmm. That should always be a part of what any creator has the power to do. You know, it's kind of like James Bond, Ian Fleming. Now, Ian Fleming died before he could complete everything that he was doing. But he was headed a particular direction. I'm not saying he was going to kill the character, but he was headed a particular direction with the character and the way that he was writing it. Okay? The only thing I agreed with as far as the Daniel Craig movies were going was that the direction that they were headed with the character was kind of sort of parallel to what the books were doing up to a point. Where they screwed up was when you started doing things that were outside the character or other characters that are known to be a part of it. Look, Felix Leiter in the books is someone who is Bond's friend. The guy almost died because he got eaten a little bit by a shark. Because of that, he left the clandestine services and ended up working in other places, even became a private eye for a little bit. But he's still a part of Bond's life. He doesn't die because a boat sinks. And spoilers for anybody that didn't see the last Bond film. Bond doesn't die at all. That's not the direction that I think Ian Fleming was headed with the character. Where I think he was going was Bond was starting to become aware of how things truly run. Now, up to that point, he is a man who has been sent to do a lot of things. And because he's doing it for Queen and Country, to save the free world, he was willing to buy into whatever they wanted him to do. And over time, he starts to become a little disillusioned. Because it seems like with the way the world and the politicians work, things change. And people who were trying to kill you on Monday, you're working with them on Wednesday. And especially if it's someone who killed one of your best friends and you're having to basically save this guy's life on Friday. And I think the character of Bond was reaching kind of like a point in his life where he was going to have to make a major decision about what to do. And then Ian Fleming died before he could really get to where he was going with the character. People tuned out of that last movie, Bond movie, because they just took it a step too far. And now the announcement that they're just going to change the character because they need something new. And if you notice, all the Bond actors, all of these actors who were talking about wanting to be Bond, you don't hear a peep from them now and talking about it. You hear a lot of people still mentioning their names, but you're hearing nothing from the actors, or at least their representatives. That's because they don't want to do this. Idris Elba, who I thought would have made a great Bond,
he's awesome.
He doesn't talk about it anymore for two very important reasons. One, I don't think he likes the direction that they're talking about changing the character, and the other is obvious. He's too old to play the character. You know, Bond is a man of a certain age. Sean Connery helped to establish that. He re-emphasized that too later on. If you understand, Bond is someone who actually fought during World War II. So it's the 1950s, and he's a man in his 30s who's out there just getting it done. Every day he wakes up, he could die. That explains the way that he treats everything. He puts everything into the job. So when it's time to play, he puts everything into that too, because this could be his last night. That's the way the character is. To try to change that part of the character to make him more sensitive to modern sensibilities completely operates in the exact reverse of what Ian Fleming was trying to do with someone that had gone through the horrors of war.
Right.
And he saw the way the world was changing. To have fought on a battlefield against someone is one thing, but to enter the clandestine services, this is a different kind of warfare, because now you're playing it amongst the people who you were trying to protect. You know, this is war on a secretive level. Not all of it is about killing someone. Sometimes it's just about hiding things, sleight of hand, getting a piece of misdirection, knowing who to trust. That's the other thing. Developing all of those skills that you have to have in order to be able to live and survive, to be able to wake up the next morning. In some ways, I shouldn't say it's worse, but on a battlefield, you realize this is where we're doing it. Now, when you're out in the world, anything can happen at any time. You have to be ready. And that's who Bond is. He is a man. He's a weapon, is what he is.
He's the contingency plan.
That's right. He's also not. He's not a handsome man, the way Ian Fleming describes him. He's not somebody that can walk into a room and be devastatingly good looking. Okay? That's not somebody that would make a good spy. He should be someone that can walk into a room
and disappear.
But that's the other thing. The thing about Bond is that while he wasn't an ugly man at all, but he had a presence. There was something about this guy that, yes, he could disappear in a room, but there was something about the way that he carried himself.
So if you compare everything that they should have done with Bond,
yes.
How do you think that stacks up to the Gray Man?
Oh, gosh. Good question. That's a good direction. Really, this leads me back to what I was saying at VisionCon. Hollywood has just managed to really muck up a lot of different things. The Bourne books are a complete whiff, with the exception of the first movie, which is a good adaptation of the first book. All the other films have nothing to do with the titles that they've used them for.
Right.
You know, that's like going to see Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and they start playing Return of the Jedi. That's how different it is.
Well, when they made World War Z, Tom, what was that his name? Max Brooks got an advanced screening of the movie.
Yeah.
And they asked him, they said, "What'd you think of it?" He goes, "Well, they used my title."
Yeah. Yeah. And Max Brooks is a guy who I love listening to. I love his life story. Someday somebody's going to make a movie about his life story, living with his parents and the extraordinary job his mom did in raising him, given some of the things that he had to overcome. Trust me, Max Brooks he's just one of those guys that if he ever, I don't know if he's got a podcast. If he does, I'll listen to it without even really just hesitating, because he's that entertaining. I love how his mind works. It's just a great mind, and he should definitely be writing more movies, because I think all of us would be entertained by them. If you've never read World War Z, to the people out there, do yourself a favor and read that. In fact, read
great book.
Read the original Jurassic Park novel too, because
much better than the movie.
Oh, jeez.
Yep, I love that book.
Robert Forster had a question for you.
Yeah.
And he said, "Keith, what DA books do you think would do best?"
All of them. And I'm not just saying, I'm telling you right now, your work is set to go. What you need is a producer that understands that. That's what it's about. That really is. You can't look at the success of the Harry Potter film series. Part of that is making sure that you have the author behind what you do. That is not about the author. That's about the producer, David Hyman. Okay? Without him making that decision, I don't think those movies do as well. And you need to have a producer that understands that. And as I was explaining before, what you need to understand about a producer is this. People try to make it seem like, oh, it's so hard, you can't define what it is. Actually, it's a relatively easy position to describe. The producer is the boss. Period. The producer is the boss. The producer is the one in charge. The director's job is to take all these words on a page and to turn that into visuals. That's a hard thing to do. Okay? But that's a time-consuming thing to do. people are under this mistaken idea that the director is the one in charge. No, the director is the one who is painting the picture. He's creating everything that the audience will see. That's a very time-consuming thing. The boss is the producer. In reality, the producer can even fire the director.
Yeah.
The producer is the one who all the department heads and everyone, they really answer to the producer. Why? Because the producer has all the money.
Yeah.
They run the department that runs everybody's paychecks. They control it. That's their job. And I tell people all the time, if you really dispute that, here's a little thing that you need to understand next time you watch the Academy Awards, if you ever do. Actors have their award. Directors have their award. Costume designers. Set designers. Do the producers get an award? Actually, they do. They're the ones that take home the Best Picture Oscar. That's where that award goes to. That's the reason why when they announce the nominees for Best Picture, all the names they mention are all the producers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who takes the award home.
Didn't know that. Before we get too far off this, I got to get your opinion on something. I was waiting, and we kind of did as we do, and kind of drifted off. Going back to James Bond.
Yes,
Sean Connery was my James Bond.
I agree.
Yeah. Same here.
So, and I think you and I have talked about this, DA. Keith, what do you think of the theory that The Rock is technically a James Bond movie, and Sean Connery's character in The Rock was James Bond?
I think it's fun. I like that.
Great theory. I love
it. It is. Yeah, I love it.
It freaking makes 100% sense when I watched a video of this guy on YouTube, and I can't remember for the life of me what the name of that video was, but he lined it out, and it's, I mean, just from the small stuff of like when General Hummel was talking to Sean Connery's character, the way he was talking to him, the things he was saying, like he just knew, and it's like, you know, when Sean Connery says, "Yeah, I was in the Navy," or what, or how he says it and all that stuff, and he's I think it was. I think when you said, this is what made me think about that, when you said that Ian Fleming had a direction, that if you think about the way Sean Connery's character was played in that,
the
way he was going, getting the film, getting it to good speed, that's exactly where Ian Fleming was taking that character. I think that was one of these homages that I think this director really was a fan and took it in that direction, but just couldn't say, "Hey, this is what it is." But he did.
They couldn't for many reasons. Right. Maybe to get sued. But still, the writing is on the wall.
Well, I mean, that film didn't. I mean, there were things about that movie that also didn't go off. I don't know if you know the story about some of the behind the scenes making of that film. Sean Connery was a producer on the film, and the film was directed by Michael Bay. And let's just say there's a reason why that was the first and last time Michael Bay would ever direct Sean Connery. You know, you can
see that.
There are certain tricks that directors will use to get a certain kind of performance out of actors. And he tried to do that to Sean Connery for a scene. And Connery threatened to knock him on his ass if he ever tried that with it.
Probably could have.
He probably could have.
Even at that age.
You know, you look.
You try that again, Bay. Knock the block off.
It is just that you have to respect the skills of the actors that you bring in. I am a firm believer that as a director, you know, there are some people that are really good at directing actors. Okay. They know what to do. They know how to speak to them. They know how to work. And more often than not, it's usually someone that's had some acting training themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If
Thank
that
you,
is not
KC, by the way.
if that is not you, then really what you should be looking for, if that's not your strong suit as the director, is you should look for the best actors for the roles and you let them act. Your job is to not be a theater director. Your job is to be a director. Your job is to take all these words on the page and to bring it to life up there. That is your job.
This is kind of like what you're talking about. It's kind of like the way Stanley Kubrick did. What's her name from The Shining? Shelley Duvall.
Mm-hmm.
Just basically ruining her life.
Yeah, you if you have to do things to people to get them to jump through certain hoops, I think that's way too much work. And I've heard many directors say that it's not worth it. You know, your job should be to just tell, if the actors know their lines, then it's really about getting them to hit the marks that you need them to hit for the scene that they are shooting for that moment. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That should be it. If you're having to do all these tricks to get them to do things, something's not working right.
Right.
Now, that isn't to say that actors can't have moments or that there can't be difficulties or whatever. Like, for instance, I love William Shatner, but he wasn't that easy to work with for a bit on Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. So the director had to find ways of getting him to do and hit certain things. In exasperating Shatner to a point to where you could elicit that performance, all I have to say is look at the final product.
Yeah.
He did it right. I mean, that may not have been my call, but he got the performance out of his lead actor that he needed.
I will say about Wrath of Khan, that whole exchange between Enterprise and Reliant, still one of the coolest spaceship battles I've ever seen.
Well, that's because, again, you have a director that was not initially familiar with Star Trek and sat down and watched all the episodes that he needed to understand it, and he got it. You know, he knew that Roddenberry took certain ideas from C.S. Forster's Horatio Hornblower novels and then combined it with Forbidden Planet. And that's what Star Trek is. When you watch those movies, I just recently rewatched Horatio Hornblower
Great
with
movie.
Gregory Peck. And I had forgotten the fact that C.S. Forster himself wrote the script for that movie. And you watch that film, the character interactions and all of that's straight up Star Trek. All of that stuff is. And you watch Forbidden Planet, which, again, I don't know if I got a chance to tell you when I saw you, but you do realize that the Star Trek television show wasn't meant to look the way that it ultimately was. Okay? When Desilu went to go sell the show or sell a bunch of shows, they sold 2 series to NBC. And that was kind of a problem because they only had enough to make one show. And they had to decide which show was going to get the money. So they gave all the money mainly to Mission Impossible. So Star Trek had to do without. But the original idea for Star Trek was to look a lot like that Forbidden Planet movie in terms of set designs, in terms of the use of matte paintings, and there were all these ideas for the show that when you watch the remastered Star Trek episodes and you actually see the way the lighting was, especially during the first season of the show, you start noticing that the primary colors, blue, red, and kind of an off yellow that originally was supposed to be green, those primary colors are not only throughout the ship as far as the painted parts of the set, but they're also the colors that you'll see in various scenes depending on the area of the ship where you're at.
Mhm.
And when they're lighting the scenes and lighting the characters, there's a cinematic way that they tried to do it. That was one of the things that they were trying to do for the entirety of the series by having expansive sets, matte painting. They were going to have all this stuff, and they never got all that. They got some of it, little tiny bit of it. So what you were talking, really, you were going to have this incredible looking series with those scripts. Oh man.
They still did a lot with what they had, though.
That's because
And that series was groundbreaking in its day.
That's because nobody in Hollywood was interested in doing what they were doing in literature. Whether it's science fiction, fantasy, or even horror, the people who write the stuff are about 20 years ahead of where Hollywood and the entertainment industry are. And science fiction was, for Hollywood at that time, it was what they were doing on Lost in Space. Nothing against Lost in Space at all. But a show with a robot, ray guns, flying saucers, and women screaming. That's what it was. So for Star Trek to be what it was, that's at least a good 10 to 20 years way ahead of where everybody else was at that time. And that is still amazing to this day. It to me, it's one of the greatest television series of all time because of what they were able to do. And the smart thing in hiring not only people that have experience as writers, but also hiring people that were also authors of science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Their writing staff is still one of the best writing staffs in the history of the genre. The only writing staff to me that is without really any equal was the entire writing staff for The Twilight Zone.
Great series.
That show, you got to go a long way to beat The Twilight Zone. A long way. But Star Trek was getting up there, It just goes to show that if you put a little bit of work in and you are a fan, you can do some extraordinary things. And for you, DA, really having a producer that totally gets your work is the same thing as finding a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. Okay? And there are still things that can go wrong even after you find a producer that gets it. But that to me is the most important thing. Today, a lot of producers are willing to cross lines that in years past they never would have considered. That's what happened with the Spider-Man movie franchise with Sam Raimi.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sacred relationship between the producer and the director. And when you hear about producers and directors not getting along, that's a breaking of that sacred relationship. When you consider how all of that is brought together, the producers really have to go out and find a director whose vision for the film matches their own, or at least whose vision for the film that they can feel comfortable with giving that person money.
Right.
My argument always is, once you get to the point where you've hired a director and the director's going out and getting the actors and doing all the stuff they need to do, really your time to bitch and complain as a producer is done. You've made your decision. Okay? Stick with it. If you don't like a particular director's vision, that should have came up when you were talking to him. It's kind of like, trying to decide which doctor is going to operate on you for your hernia operation. You can't wait until the day of the operation to go, yeah, I don't want that doctor. I want that guy down there. I want somebody. It's too late.
Right.
It's too late. And there are way too many in the entertainment industry that think that everything's negotiable and that we can make changes anytime we want. No, you can't. I'm sorry, you can't. You can't change your mind about wanting to parachute just as you leave the plane. Once you go out that door and it's you're parachuting God, that's heck of a time to change your mind.
Right.
So it's very important. And I think I think there are producers out there that will get it. It's just finding a producer that can also understand that if you're willing to put a little time and effort and a little creativity, you can make it all work. Anyone that can anyone that comes to you and says, we can get you everything and this, that, and the other, there's always room to be creative. Some of the best movies or films where they didn't get everything they wanted, and so they had to be creative to compensate for it. And those movies have become films that a lot of us really love. Jaws was all about trying to compensate for the fact that the chemical shark didn't work.
Which turned out to be a blessing in disguise.
That's right. Nobody can guarantee that everything's going to go right on any film production. Having a good producer means that even when something goes wrong, you're still going to be able to finish the movie. That's
turn it into a positive.
That's right. You will finish the film. That's what is so surprising about Kathleen Kennedy. Having worked as a producer for so long of her career, to have done the things that have been done, she either did it on purpose or she's that incompetent. That's my thought on it.
I would definitely agree.
Either she's been fooling us all these years or she's that incompetent.
Well, every project she's had since being with Disney has turned to crap. I mean, look what she did to Indiana Jones.
Yeah, well, that's a choice. She made a choice, and it was a bad choice in my opinion. I will
even
say
Harrison Ford's not happy with that.
Well, Harrison Ford has other reasons to be unhappy with her. The whole thing about having him come back for the rise of Skywalker, that was just dumb. Seriously. And yet he showed up.
That would be a choice, right?
Obviously he got paid, but
and you're absolutely right in calling it the rise of Palpatine. If I walked out in my front yard and decided to announce to the world my last name is Moncrief, that doesn't make me a Moncrief.
Well, maybe it might if you slip me some money, but I mean,
Well, you are my brother, so, and I do love that.
I just got to say that this whole way of telling stories really is harmful in so much as that it denigrates and disrespects all the people who actually were good at it for decades prior to this current generation. You can't look at a film like The Wild Bunch or Logan's Run or even, The Hustler. And you just can't see many of the people that are involved with those productions pulling some of the same shenanigans that you're getting right now from the people that are currently doing things.
Well, one of the ones I always like to talk about is The Night Stalker, Kolchak the Night Stalker.
Mm-hmm.
Look back at the Darren McGavin 1970s Kolchak the Night Stalker, and look at that abomination that the Sci-Fi Channel tried to pass off.
That's actually a Fox series, is what that was.
Was it? Well, it was horrible.
They reran.
It was horrible.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you get people that are only interested in the name The Night Stalker
and trying to reboot it. And okay, I get all that. What are you bringing to the table that fans can get behind, both in terms of original fans and any new fans that you want? If you're
Right,
going to
you've
remember
got to
those,
engage both fans.
That's
You've got to
right.
bring in new ones and still engage the old ones. And when you decide you're going to come onto the project and just take a big dump on everything that came before, you're
Yeah.
immediately losing your original fan base.
well, you're losing everybody. Nobody liked the show. That's
Right.
the thing about it. Nobody liked it. It's like the people that made Batwoman. What was your audience for that show? Because you're making nobody happy with this.
Not the original fans of Batgirl, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was just who. And again, that's what I would say to Kathleen Kennedy. I would say, hey, look, I don't believe you're this evil person. I just want to understand your thinking as to why you didn't think it was that important to put Han, Luke, Leia, Lando, and Chewie in a scene together.
Right.
Well, and here's this is my, and I'm not saying that people can live their life however they choose to live their life. I got to preface it by saying that I don't care.
Right.
But
Same
why do you have to take a character that was not anything? Why do you have to start inserting all this stuff into this to make it more friendly for? That's where you start messing up, because the fan base for Star Wars is not this younger generation right now. The fan base for Star Wars is us, people our age.
Right.
Star Wars came out. That's your fan base. That's who you need to be trying to make happy. And then if you get other people in, great. But you can't take characters like Han, Luke, and Leia, and all the Marvel characters, and all these characters. They've just taken and crumpled up everything. And I don't care what they did in the comic books or the earlier. We're gonna do it this way.
Right. Well, look at Marvel. When they came up with the end of the Spider-Verse, when Miles Morales became Spider-Man, they did that right. Miles Morales is a fantastic Spider-Man because he's not replacing Peter Parker. He's someone else entirely. He's his own character. And if they did that, if they created their own characters and gave these characters their own identity, then people will love these characters, especially if you put the time into creating the character and making the character livable, making the character relatable. But when you just take an existing character and go, okay, I'm going to change everything you ever loved about this character, you're just going to piss your fans off.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. When Miles was created, this is where a lot of the disruption was originally with that character. Miles was actually created to replace Peter Parker because he was part of the Ultimate Universe.
Right.
And in those books, Peter Parker dies and Miles becomes the new Spider-Man.
Right.
And what they did was you had an entire generation of fans. Because remember, Miles Morales has actually been around a lot longer prior to that movie. You had an entire generation of fans who were waiting for, Miles Morales to come into the universe so they could kill Peter Parker. Because that's the story that they knew. That's the story that was introducing Miles Morales. Peter dies, and Miles becomes Spider-Man. Not Miles Morales Spider-Man. He becomes Spider-Man. And what they realized is that they had messed up. Because the original idea was to reboot all of the Marvel characters in the Ultimate Universe to streamline these characters in such a way that if Marvel was starting in the early 2000s, if it were 1960 all over again, except that it was in the 2000s and you were doing it all over again from zero, what would you do? And forgetting about Miguel O'Hara, which was the first Spider-Man of color, they went ahead and redid everything. They redid the Fantastic Four. They even renamed the Avengers. They weren't even the Avengers. They were called the Ultimates. What you see in the MCU films, that's the ultimate version of the Avengers, not the regular Avengers. But it works. It works. It's cinematic. People love it. It's fun. That's what it should be.
Yeah, because Iron Man.
And that's what they forget.
The original Avengers, was he?
Oh yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
was.
he was an
The
original
guy.
Avenger.
The guy had a much worse life. I mean, Civil War, all that stuff was much worse than look. Tony Stark
Oh yeah.
to do the comic book accurate version of Tony Stark, he is not a likable guy.
No, he was
And
well. First off, he was an alcoholic and a
that's
bad
right.
one.
They skipped over a lot of stuff with that character.
I mean,
to make
Rhodey
him
had to literally take Iron Man away from him.
Yeah.
At multiple points in the comics because his
Mhm.
alcoholism got so bad.
Oh, he mistreated Pepper. He mistreated everybody.
Treated
The whole-
everybody like crap.
the whole demon in a bottle storyline.
But he was more
Like-
he was more of a B team character is where I was getting at with that. He wasn't
Uh,
at the forefront and being the big
Depends on who wrote him. I mean,
Yeah,
John
it
Romita
does.
Jr.'s time on Iron Man, freaking awesome.
Yeah. It really did depend on who wrote him. Look, you're talking about with the comics, from the jump, you had the Fantastic Four. And the story of where the X-Men came from is one of the coolest things of all time. Fantastic Four comes out. Everybody in the industry takes notice. Everybody takes notice. And so DC Comics looks at it and goes, wow, that's really cool, but I think we can do better. So they create the Doom Patrol.
Mhm.
The Doom Patrol comes out and kills. That comic book literally slays. The numbers on it, the fans, that comic comes out and it just destroys the competition. Stan Lee took one look at the Doom Patrol and was like, wow, I think we can do better.
Yeah.
But instead of doing something so outrageous, he did something really kind of radically simple. He took the core characters from the Doom Patrol. Negative Man, Rita, Robot Man, and Niles the Chief. He turned them into Cyclops,
Colossus?
Iceman. No. Cyclops, Iceman, Marvel
Jean
Girl,
Grey,
and
the Angel.
And
Angel
Professor
and Beast
Xavier.
were the original.
No.
original names.
No. I mean what he did.
Oh, okay.
Stan Lee literally took the characters from the Doom Patrol, which are Negative Man, Robot Man, Rita, Elastigirl, and the Chief, Niles Calder. Okay, and he turned them into Cyclops, Iceman / Angel, Marvel Girl. And with Niles, all he did was, I'm just going to shave off all his hair and his beard. I'm going to keep him in the wheelchair and call him Xavier. That's exactly what he did.
You know, there's a series of comics that I would love to see done right in a movie, and I think it could really knock it out of the park again if it was done right. Do you remember the original run of Jim Lee's Wildcats?
Oh, yeah.
Those were fantastically done. Great characters.
They're owned by DC, which means Warner can turn around and do that stuff.
I would love to see a multi-part series of the Wildcats origin stories.
Well, did you enjoy the animated series?
Oh yeah, loved the animated series.
Yeah, a lot of people love the animated series. That's
Well,
really
you remember back at VisionCon, what was it, 20 years ago, 25 years ago? I did a Grifter cosplay.
Mm-hmm. I love Grifter.
Grifter's my favorite.
I just think that just debate with that, why they couldn't do that, because Wildcats is one of those comics, one of those teams that could. That's the closest that DC has to anything Marvel related. That is a Marvel team, and now they have it.
And Jim Lee created that based on his time running the X-Men. And I think that's why Wildcats worked so well, because he took all those great qualities of the X-Men and he
Mhm.
imbued these characters with it. I mean, there were some freaking awesome characters. I mean, I
Oh yeah.
love Maul. I liked Lady Zealot.
Oh,
You know, Hadrian, the robot guy. I can't remember his code
oh,
name. Guardian. Those characters are so freaking great.
I just I I have to just ask why Jim Lee doesn't press the issue and get that turned into something. At least make another like direct to home movie just with the
Mhm.
Wildcats. That'd be awesome. But you
I
know,
think if done right, I think if done right, then that the Wildcats, as done as a movie series of movies, could rival everything Marvel did with the Avengers.
oh yes, oh yes, easily, easily. But I'm not in charge. I wish I could make that call. I wish I could just call up Jim Lee and go, "Hey, man, you
No
know,
kidding.
I found him to be one of the nicest people I've ever met, and very generous with his time. He was willing to sign almost as many books as you brought up to him, and there were some people bringing stacks of comics for him to sign. He just tried to sign them all. This is the
That's a
guy that
super
just,
nice guy.
oh my goodness. But for whatever reason, Warner Brothers and he just don't seem to see the logic in allowing that to be something that they could do. It's the
Well,
same thing with the Milestone books.
that's what y'all are talking about. That's the way Masters of the Universe and He-Man is to me.
Yeah.
If I was ever locked in a room with Kevin Smith, I would probably lose my badge.
Well, Kevin Smith wasn't your problem. Kevin,
Kind of that way
look,
with
look,
Rob Liefeld.
let me tell you something about that whole Masters of the Universe thing. The fact that you said that shows that what they did worked. And here's what I mean. Kevin Smith was not a Masters of the Universe fan. You want to know what Kevin Smith's main job was?
To
To do
piss us off,
to do exactly what you just said that you would do. That if you happen to be mad, you're going to go after Kevin Smith.
not them.
The guy who you want is a guy by the name of Ted Biaselli. Okay? 10 years ago, Ted Biaselli was just an actor. For whatever reason, he got hired by Netflix, became an executive, and started making deals on various projects and stuff. And this was a big project for him. I was listening to Kevin's podcast a lot a couple years back, and he kept talking about Ted and a secret project. He kept referencing how Ted was really smart. The whole thing was that all of that Masters of the Universe stuff came straight from Ted Biaselli because Netflix was financing the whole thing.
Mhm.
Kevin's job was to basically be the beard. He was a name, but that was it because he didn't know anything about He-Man. Okay? His job was to get people interested in the project. And the argument would be, well, wait a minute. It's Masters of the Universe. Of course, the fans would be interested if you just announced it, right? No. Because Ted knew that what they were doing with the characters wasn't going to be that popular. They needed to get people focused in on what they were doing in a positive way. And Ted, being the kind of guy that he was, I don't know. I've never met the man. All I know is he wasn't going to make himself available to you fans. He didn't want to deal with you. So bringing in Kevin made it possible for Kevin to have to deal with you rather than you dealing with the guy who was responsible for all that stuff. So look
3D
him up.
Havoc has a question for us, and Keith, I'll let you start. He says, "What was your favorite Batman and why?"
In what context?
It
Are we
doesn't
talking
give a context.
Hollywood or comics or because I have an answer for all that. I have a different answer based on which way we're going to go.
Well, let's just go strictly with the movies.
The movies. Oh gosh. Weighing it out, given the 7 people that have played Batman, I would have to go with Ben Affleck. and I'll tell you why.
Ben Affleck. I'm surprised about that one.
No, and I'll tell you why. For a long time, I actually thought that Adam West was the first actor to ever play Batman. And just like how some people think that it's Christopher Reeve to have ever played Superman, I was wrong. Understanding the history of where the Batman comes from and the comics character and all that stuff, I think it's very important to find an actor that is a big fan of the character.
Mm-hmm.
Adam West is a big fan of the version of the character that he played. Because you got to understand something about actors in Hollywood. They're really not the same kind of fans that we are unless it's a character they grew up with themselves.
Right.
And even then, some of them still aren't fans, okay? I said Adam West is a very funny guy. But I've also read his book. And I've seen the interviews that he gave during when the first Tim Burton movie came out. It's kind of a funny guy, but also a little bitter. All the other guys that have played Batman have done relatively well. Michael Keaton's really good, especially after that movie Stand and Deliver.
Mm-hmm.
But Ben Affleck, I think, is the first actor to have ever played the character that literally grew up reading the comics. And come on, look at how big he got. You have to be that big to be Batman. You cannot be a skinny guy and be Batman. I'm sorry. You cannot be a skinny guy and be Batman to be able to beat up people that way. That fight scene in BVS in the warehouse, to me, is one of the it's one of the greatest fight scenes in any comic book movie. And
that is what you would expect Batman to do to somebody.
There are only two scenes that, depending on what day you ask me, it's the greatest fight scene in comic book films. It's either the warehouse from the BVS or it's the elevator scene from Winter Soldier.
That's my two favorite
scene.
That's my two favorite too.
You boys sure you want to do this?
Anybody want to get out?
And it's like, because it gets to the heart of who these characters are. And when you think about these characters being in real life, that's exactly what you think that they would fight like.
Right.
Because Cap is holding back.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to hurt him.
If he really wanted to, there'd be a whole lot of dead guys in that elevator.
He'd have made paste in that elevator.
If he really, really wanted to, he would have put his hands through so many people's chests.
You could understand that when, at the beginning of that very same movie, when they're trying to get to the boat and he just goes and jumps out of the back. Like, did he take a parachute? Nope. No, he didn't.
Nope.
That pretty much gives it away right there. He was way holding back.
And it's the same thing with Batman. It's the same thing with Ben Affleck. I love his commitment. I love the fact that he got big like that. Look, everything about that version of Batman, including having the actor that played Alfred, I mean, just everything was just spot on perfect. And it just makes me crazy that the people who were running Warner Brothers at that time, after even reading the script for Ben Affleck's movie, went, "Nah, I think we could do better. I think we can go and get another Batman.
Let's get the sparkly guy from Twilight.
Let's go ahead and remake 7 with Batman, and then make him dumb, and thus why I call it Dumb 7, because that's what that movie is. It's dumb. It's a dumb version of the movie 7, with the two characters who are supposed to be the smartest guys in comics, Commissioner Gordon and Batman, both being stumped because they don't understand Spanish.
Yeah, that was a no-brainer there. Robbie, what's your favorite version of Batman?
Well, obviously you just heard what one of my two favorite fight scenes are. So yeah, I'm with Keith on this. To me, Ben Affleck, and I'm kind of like, I got, depending on how you asked the question, before Ben Affleck's character, I would have said that Val Kilmer to me played a very good Bruce Wayne.
Mhm.
I liked Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne. I wasn't. I love Val Kilmer, one of my favorite actors. But I wasn't sold on his Batman. Val Kilmer is a great actor, but I just was not sold on his Batman. His Bruce Wayne was awesome. I liked Michael Keaton's Batman. I don't think his Bruce Wayne was as good as Val Kilmer. So before Ben Affleck, that's how I would have had to answer that question: is Bruce Wayne, Val Kilmer, Batman, Michael Keaton. If you can combine them two, and George Clooney,
yeah, just toss George Clooney.
He's that far above Robert Pattinson's portrayal, in my opinion.
Let me at least say this about George Clooney. I kind of feel in some ways the same way, in so much as that I thought his Bruce Wayne was spot on. I thought his Bruce Wayne was spot on for what it would be. His Batman left a little bit to be desired.
He played his Batman like a modern version of Adam West, in my opinion.
That's right. That entire film is nothing more than just that's because it's all based on the same material. I keep telling people the Adam West Batman series, that's really just the 1950s Batman played out.
Yeah.
You know, that's all it is. It's an adaptation of all the comics they put out in the 1950s, and it's done in the 1960s. And so when it came time to make the movies, that's what the movie Batman and Robin is. It's a modern day take of all you people who are upset that Adam West and Burt Ward aren't doing these movies. Here's the movie for you. This is what it would be like. That's what it is.
You see, now my favorite Batman, and I'm not taking away from anything you guys have said. I agree with you on the fight scene in the warehouse. Just absolutely spot on. And I'm going to go with Bale, but not for the reason you think. The Bale movies were fine. The Bale movies were really good. But the one scene that Bale absolutely sold me is in his first appearance as Batman, when Ra's al Ghul showed up at his house. When you actually get to see that Bruce Wayne is the mask, not Batman. You get to see Bale put that mask in place. He was Batman, boom, Bruce Wayne as he steps out into the crowd. Bruce Wayne is the mask, not Batman. And that is why Bale, to me, he's the only one that got that. He fully understood that Bruce Wayne left Gotham and he never came back. Batman came back.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I love those movies. I thought that Christopher Nolan and his people did a fantastic job, but people also have to understand that the same people who you congratulate for that film were also responsible for Man of Steel.
True.
Because the studio didn't know what it wanted. The studio wanted a Superman movie, and they used Christopher Nolan and his team to put all that together. That's the reason why Man of Steel is the way that it is, because it was that's a Superman movie from Christopher Nolan's team as directed by Zack Snyder. And his writers wrote that thing. Snyder didn't get a chance to have a lot of input on that film. Christopher Nolan, his team put that together. Nolan came up with the basic story. His writers, who had been working on all three of those Batman films, did all of that in writing the screenplay. And then he had his advanced team start work on that movie while they were still in the middle of shooting the third Batman film.
And for what it was, I mean, that Superman movie was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't awesome. It wasn't fantastic, but it was. I've watched it more than once.
Yeah. I liked it. I liked it a lot because, again, I'm originally from Ohio, so it's a law that Superman's one of your favorite characters anyway because he's from Ohio. But seriously though, he's from Ohio because the two guys who created him from Ohio, they're high school students from Cleveland who came up with the character, and the character that helped to define and what superhero comics were. Without Superman, you've got none of this. None of this exists. There is no Batman. Bob Kane got the deal because Superman was huge. He looked at how much money, and then DC said, "Yeah, you can come up with a character just as big. We'll pay you X amount of dollars. And it's like, when do I need to have it? It's like, by Monday. Deal. And he goes out and, you know,
You
finds
got
some
what,
other
48 hours? Nothing big.
Yeah. And he ends up finding Bill Finger, and Bill Finger is the one who actually did all the real work. And by Monday, he's presenting this character, and he gets the deal, and his lawyers look over the contract, and then that's when he screwed everybody that worked on the thing by signing that contract in such a way it's like, well, even if I'm never working on the comic, I get full credit, okay? And that was the deal they had with that book. I tell people all the time, Bob Kane, it's not that Bob Kane didn't have an idea for Batman. It's just that the Batman that you think you know is way different than the one that Bob Kane originally came up with.
Very true.
And that the guy who ended up doing all the work basically died alone and penniless almost in an apartment in the early 1970s. And when writing about it in his memoir, all Bob Kane could say is, man, I wish I had handled that differently. Okay. You say that when you make the mistake and do something wrong to someone that you can actually go to them and apologize for. Dude's dead.
Right.
You can never really make up for that. And all you can say is,
should have done it differently.
Should have done it differently. It's like, dude, you know, I don't curse the guy or anything because that's not for me to say. I'm just saying that tells you who he was. And that Bill Finger did way more than what he was ever given credit for. So that's why when people ask me about Batman, you know, I always say it's Batman as created by Bill Finger from an idea by Bob Kane.
So who do you think was the best Joker, and why do you think it was Heath Ledger?
Because he got it. Look,
Yeah.
Look. How about this one? Why is the Joker the best comic book villain, bar none?
Bar none.
Because, you know, there have been 3 acting Academy Awards given for comic book movies, all of them for DC. Two of them for the Joker. I'm just saying.
That speaks for itself.
It's just saying. So, in fact, all of really, as far as the Academy is concerned, while you do have all your technical Oscars, you know, visual effects and, you know, makeup and all that, DC has consistently won more of those awards than even Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And DC is actually the home of the guy who created the modern comic. Because comic books prior to what this guy created, they were just reprints of stuff that you saw in the comic sections of newspapers. And this guy decides, hey, how about if we just create something new? I hire artists and writers, and we can create new adventures and new stories with the characters that you love, and just put out a new book like that. Boom. Modern comics. And he goes off and he starts his own publishing company, and that becomes DC Comics. Thus, you know, and this is a guy that has military experience. He served in the United States Army. And that's why I tell people, DC Comics has, first of all, is the only comic book company that has been around as long as they tell you it's been. It's been uninterrupted since they found success, especially after Superman came out. Marvel Comics has gone out of business twice. They celebrate a business that's been around 80 years, but in actuality, a majority of the Marvel characters when you think Marvel Comics, now think of a character. I guarantee you the character you just thought of came after 1960.
Yeah. However, given props where props is due,
Yes.
the death of Jean Grey, the Marvel offices were flooded with flowers. There were people sending flowers to the Marvel offices for the funeral.
Yes.
It was massive outpour of people, upset over the death of Jean Grey.
Yes. Meanwhile, at the DC offices, a lot of fans were happy at the fact that, hey, I just got Robin killed. We just helped kill Robin. It's oh man, you got to understand, the entertainment industry has loved DC Comics for years. When you look back at all the comics that they have done and all of the tie-in comics with various celebrities like Bob Hope and Jerry Lewis and others, how they've had their own comic books and they were all DC comics, or you look at a movie like The Beatles and Help, the scene where they go to their individual apartments. It turns out that one big long apartment, and they have the organ that comes up from the floor that Paul McCartney's playing on. That's not sheet music on the organ. Those are Jimmy Olsen comics. Paul McCartney was a big comic book fan. Trust me, he knew his comics. Okay, he was more of a Marvel fan, just to put it out there. But comics have always been big. Marvel, DC. The thing is that Marvel was really, by the 1960s, this was their last chance. And they took advantage of it. Stan had to go and humble himself just to get Jack Kirby to come back, because Kirby and he had a falling out from before. Kirby was technically Stan Lee's boss when Stan Lee got hired to the company, because Stan married into the company. He married the publisher's wife's cousin. And Joe Simon was the guy running everything. He was the main guy for the comic books and learned everything from Joe Simon. So then Kirby and Simon were the duo in comics. Look, DC Comics, excellent. But the number one duo in comics was Jack Kirby and Joe Simon. Those guys were talent on loan. And back then, everybody enjoyed everybody. People that worked different comic book, they all hung out, they all partied together. Somebody informed Martin Goodman, who was the publisher of Marvel, that Kirby and Simon were moonlighting at other companies. Got them fired. And mysteriously, somebody took their job. And Jack believed that it was Stan for a long time. So they had to get past all that for Jack to even come back in the 1960s. Now, there are other stories about Stan Lee and Jack and a few other people that Stan worked with. You're going to be hearing more stories come out as time goes on. Mm-hmm. I love Stan Lee. I will never apologize for loving that guy. He was the best ambassador that comics ever had.
I agree.
Okay. Did he have a complicated relationship with the comic book industries and the truth? Yes, he did. He was a complicated individual. There were a few things going on behind the scenes that certain fans may not like. And a lot of you out there aren't ready to hear those stories yet. but they're coming. Just understand that the Bob Kane story that I told wasn't the only story like that in comics. That was going on a lot.
Yep.
And that's all I'm going to say. The rest of it, you can find out, even from many of the people that have been working in comics for decades. I found out what I knew from somebody that knew comics and worked in the business for years. I have learned a lot of what I've known from people in the business. And not everybody was who that you thought as a fan you thought they were. But it wasn't bad. It was the way people did things. But as we get older, as life goes on, you realize certain people make decisions, and not all those decisions are the best decisions. You know, not everybody can wear the white hat all the time.
Well,
for some reason.
If somebody were to approach me with a production company and offer me a seriously large check to turn all of my books into Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, I'm probably going to take the money.
Sell it out. So
as much as I would hate to see them made into movies like that, yeah, it's about leaving a legacy for my family.
Yeah, offer me sellout money. I'll probably take it.
Yeah,
you know, John Carpenter's a lot of these movies that have been made based on stuff that he's made, yeah, he doesn't care as long as he gets his check.
As long as the checks are clearing.
That's right. If it's good enough for John Carpenter, come on. You know? So
one of the things that I think people have over the years have kind of lost touch with, and I'm including, the modern fiascos that companies like Disney have done with a lot of pop culture. Yeah. One of the things I think people have lost touch with is just how much some of these intellectual properties have told stories that affected our lives.
Yes,
how much we were invested, how much we were a part of these journeys, and to just dismiss everything that came before is basically sticking a knife in the heart of every fan.
Cheaper than drugs.
Yeah.
Cheaper than drugs, and still made a lot of money.
I don't know, considering how much I spent on comic books in the 70s and 80s, that might not have been cheaper than drugs.
I don't know. Well, it's cheaper in so much as that the after effect doesn't cost you as much in legal fees.
True. But all of those comics that I read, all of those books that I read, all of those movies I watched, those helped pave the way for the writer I am now.
A lot of these people raised us in a very real sense. We grew up reading some really good stories. I'm very grateful that I've at least been able to meet some of the writers. I've always tried to make it a point in going to a lot of these conventions, and I want to meet up with a lot of these writers whose work I really admired. Some of them I've not been able to meet, but I've been able to meet quite a few. And my biggest regret is that I was never able to catch up to Denny O'Neil, because Denny O'Neil, in my opinion, was one of these guys that just seemed to really and truly have the stuff. Whatever that stuff is, he had it. And he had an incredible knowledge. That's his nickname, the Professor. To me, it just didn't get any better. That Denny was the guy that basically brought Batman back. Because the character was nearly destroyed after the television series went off the air. And much of what I enjoyed about a film like, say, The Dark Knight, that's Denny O'Neil. You know, a lot of his contributions made up really a good portion of the story that the three Christopher Nolan movies made up. What came from Denny O'Neil, a guy from Missouri who just kicked it out of the park and became, in my opinion, one of the greatest Batman writers and editors ever. And I mean, come on, Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah.
You know, having Wayne Tower towards the center of Gotham with a bat cave underneath it so that Batman was centrally located to get him out of Wayne Manor, because Wayne Manor had become so synonymous with the old television series. I mean, turning Bruce Wayne into a world traveler so that Batman had all these adventures all over the world. I mean, for a long time, Batman was stuck in Gotham. And Denny O'Neil helped to make Batman a world traveler. And just, I'm really sorry I was never able to catch up to him. I would have liked to have sat down with him and just listened to any stories he wanted to tell me. But it makes sense because he started in the business as Stan Lee's assistant at Marvel Comics.
I've always wanted to meet Jim Starlin.
Oh, Jim Starlin was amazing, dude. I hope you catch up to him. I really do.
I hope I do before it gets too late.
Oh, man.
Starlin gave me the quote that fueled my writing for years. Starlin said, "Every great story starts with a death." And I've taken that to heart for so many years.
He would I almost didn't wash this hand when I met Jim Starlin ever again. I was
he's one of those ones I really hope I get to meet him.
That really is the thing that's left in going to a lot of science fiction conventions and shows, comic book shows and others. You want to be able to meet all these people. You know, I cannot say enough about Jim Starlin, and really getting to meet him at Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City, which to me is still one of the best overall events. If you cannot make it to San Diego Comic-Con, the closest you can get is Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City. It is worth your time. It is so much fun to be there. And Jim Starlin was just, oh man, yeah.
I've got to meet him.
Yeah. Anyway,
the thing that I think we've kind of lost sight of, and I don't just mean in pop culture, I mean kind of across the board, is take away the special effects, take away the flashy art, take away all of the trappings, all the visual end of it. But at the end of the day, it's the stories that have always stuck with us. It's those stories where, and I don't know if I grew up on a farm. My family was dirt poor, and to me, reading reading books and those comic books and picturing myself in these stories was how I got off the farm. It's how I left, and it's those stories that stayed with me. Those journeys that you take in your mind, because the best writing leaves just enough where you put yourself in that story.
Coming out of Halloween, coming out of the whole spooky season, I at least have to say this. It's appropriate that we're talking about this today. Marvel Comics, in its final incarnation, in the 60s. All of what Stan Lee was doing was taking something that he loved, which are monsters. He loved monsters. He loved scary movies. That's the basis of majority of the characters that he created. All of them are based on horror movie concepts. A human being who has no heart. Well, that's Iron Man.
Well, the Hulk is just Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and Hyde. You have another one where it's part man, part whatever. Well, that's Spider-Man. Half man, half spider. But instead of turning him into a spider, he's still a guy. He can just walk. Yeah, all that stuff. It's all related to that. And for my money, since then, Marvel has they have just done an amazing job up until the whole Disney sale.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just seems like people got dumb real quick. They mishandle all these characters. And you're making these movies that are winning you new fans. And then these kids that get inspired by these films are going to the comic book shops. And instead of finding Tony Stark, Iron Man, and New Adventures, they're getting Riri Williams. Who's Riri? What is that? Iron Man's a woman? What? I have never seen a company do more to self-sabotage in a short amount of time than I have with what Marvel has done to itself. I still have to shake my head and just say, what are you guys thinking? Did you guys actually think you were going to be able to sell more comics and more merchandise to young kids? Because all they really did was make more money for the people that make manga and anime. That's all they really did, is shove those kids straight into that column. Nothing against that stuff. I'm just saying, you took kids and took them right out of the American comic book market. And that's sad.
And I think we could recapture that if we went back to focusing on good storytelling.
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, I'm a big fan of just offering anybody that is a veteran, anybody. Let me put it this way. Anybody that's a competent veteran, if you've been gone from Marvel at least 15 years, you should be offered the opportunity to come back and do some new stories. You should be given the opportunity to work on any title that you want and have fun with it. And what I would do is I would cite everybody to a 1 or 2 year contract and just say, look, pick a character. You are on this character for the next year. Do whatever you want. And see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? I mean, given everything that we've seen up to now, what is the worst that can happen? Because it's already gotten pretty bad. There's nowhere to go but up, I hope.
Well, if they learn these lessons, if they start getting back to what made them good in the first place, I think they can. I think they can get back on track. But unfortunately, it seems they are just dead set on proving themselves wrong time and time again.
It's sad because it didn't need to be like this. In terms of comics, animation, novelizations, and television and film. It didn't have to be like this.
Right.
There's look, things are so bad right now with the new Daredevil series that now that they pretty much have scrapped a portion of it and they're bringing in one of the writers from Netflix. And my whole thing is like, look, if you're going to bring in one of the Netflix writers, you might as well bring in all the rest of the writers.
Right.
They could really help
Netflix
you guys.
was doing it right.
Oh, yeah.
The Netflix Daredevil was freaking awesome.
Oh, my goodness. Don't get me started. Don't get me started on how good that was.
So was the Netflix Punisher.
Oh. It all may not have been perfect, but I would even take Finn Jones back. Give it a lot of as Iron Fist, yeah, okay, he wasn't perfect, but I would take him over any of the stuff they've done on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I would rather watch another season of Iron Fist than to take any of the other stuff that they put out there. It's just bad, and it's embarrassing bad.
I was excited when I heard they were making Shang-Chi. I was hoping it was going to be much more like the comics, because one of the greatest villains in Marvel history was Ghostmaker, and I was so excited to see Ghostmaker on the screen. And then when Shang-Chi came out, I was like, "This is it. This is what you did with that."
The only thing worse was what they did to the Eternals.
Yeah,
that's a crime. I think everybody connected with that film, as far as the writing and producing of it, should be let out in chains.
that's a perfect example of being given a ton of good source material and just pissing it away.
Well, as we said earlier, they skipped over a lot of stuff for Iron Man.
Right.
The whole. You want to know what the most messed up thing, Robbie, was about Tony Stark in the comics for Civil War? He convinced Peter Parker to take his side during Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
You know what he did to Peter? He convinced him that it'd be a good idea, as a show of faith, for signing the contract, take his mask off.
Mm-hmm.
And what ultimately came after that, what it did to Peter's life, but also his explanation ultimately at the end. That basically he didn't, Tony didn't care. Tony did what he did because he wanted to gain control over S.H.I.E.L.D.
Well, Tony crossed so many lines. And when he cloned Thor, oh my God.
Oh, God.
Yeah, Tony crossed so many lines in Civil War. He was the villain in Civil War.
Yeah, he was. And the thing about the making of that film was that was not really the original idea for that movie. They had an interview with the guys who wrote the script, and they were talking about what it was like working with Kevin. And this is why fans, on Twitter /X have been making fun of the MCU, especially since that book came out, that they find it funny that since Zack Snyder has left, that mysteriously there are no sketches or story outlines that Kevin can mysteriously get in his possession that he can't end up using for an MCU film that originally came from Zack Snyder that he can use anymore, and mysteriously now all his movie ideas suck. Because that's exactly what happened. He found out that what Snyder was doing with Batman v Superman. And so even though they were working on Civil War, he decided that he needed to turn Civil War, at least have a scene where they bring back the Avengers for a scene, but in a different way, to be able to compete with Batman v Superman. And he found out that that's the first instance. The second instance is that they also Kevin found out what they were doing with the Flash. That Flash movie had been in development for years. He somehow got a hold of the script and found out what they were doing with it. So I'm assuming you guys have seen the Flash movie by now. But he found out that there was going to be 3 Flash in the movie. He figured he'd try to do his own version of that, thus Spider-Man No Way Home. That's where that idea came from. Having the 3 Spider-Men in one movie. Because he figured that the Flash was going to have 3 Flashes. He was going to have 3 Spider-Men. But he found a cheaper way to do it. rather than have all three parts played by the same actor, he decided, well, let's go get Andrew and Toby. Just let's have some fun with that. You know, it just works out better when he does it like that sometimes. But I'm telling you, Kevin's having some problems. And
that was probably one of the most popular scenes in that movie, though. Having them
it was, but it's not an original idea, and so you're watching someone struggle who's never really had to come up with anything before.
Right.
You know, that it's somebody who got good at copying answers from other people in high school, and now they've reached the final test, and he don't know enough to be able to pass it on his own.
Was Captain Marvel not his first big? That was his first big idea of a movie.
Oh, gosh, I think
What movie did Marvel start taking a nosedive? Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I think he had. We had a comment.
Yeah, I said there's not an original idea in Hollywood right now.
Oh, there are original ideas. It's just that you can take an original idea and given the gauntlet that you have to go through to go from your original idea to getting it out there on the screen, everybody and their mother will have an opportunity of hammering your idea, kicking your idea, hitting your idea over the head so that by the time it comes out the other side, it looks like anything else.
Like the old game of telephone.
Yeah, basically. I mean, think about it. There have been original ideas to a certain extent, you know.
Well, Gray Man was an original idea, and I think they did a very good job on it.
John Wick is a good example.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who wrote that, it's
just got to get in right hands of the right production company.
Well, but it was altered. It was altered. The original idea for John Wick was for an actor who was way older to play John Wick. And so the thing that Keanu and his people did was they brought the age down so that Keanu could play the part. I think that was an incredible idea. But there are original ideas. There's a lot of people that are just submitting ideas all the time. But because of the way things are run right now, there's this meat grinder that you got to put all your ideas through that just chop everything to bits. And a lot of original ideas can't stand up to that. You know, you can take any original idea and turn it into something that just, by the time it comes out the other end. So it's not possible to have it, but there are original ideas. So, wow.
Keith, I know it's getting late. I don't want to keep you too late. I know you've still got preparations to make for your own stuff.
Oh yeah. Look, you've got a great show here. You got a lot of great people that are just in the chat. Thank you to the chat. Love all of the stuff that I'm seeing. I'm honored that you would invite me on.
Well, I want to get you back. I want to do this again. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, it's like ramble all over the place, you know.
Well, we all have.
We do. Obviously, you haven't watched this show because that's what we do every single
we
show.
only marginally have a topic most days.
If we stay on topic for more than 30 minutes, something's wrong.
Well, then I invite you to watch my Thursday show then, because that's you'll feel at home.
Brother, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you being here. Again, folks, the links are in the chat. Go over to Pop Culture Minefield, give them a like, share, and subscribe. Show them some love. And Keith, thank you so much for coming on, brother. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. You know, it's nice to just talk pop culture and talk about the stories that made us happy and the stories that made us cry and grouse about the things they could be doing better. And I definitely want to do this again.
Thank you. Look, it is really my honor to be here, to meet you, Robbie, and really just to find myself just hanging out with someone who I really do feel you've got the cure for what the entertainment industry really needs. If there are any producers out there, get a hold of this guy. He's got the goods. We really need what you do. You realize this, right? We need what you do. We need you and your stories. We need to take you to that next level. We need to get you a TV series idea. Look, Netflix should just go ahead and contact you right now. Right
Brother,
now.
that means the world to hear you say that. It really does.
But you've got it. You've got what you need. And they need to contact you right now. Because there are a lot of actors out there who may want to skip playing Bond to be in one of your adaptations.
That would be so freaking cool.
Well, then let me go ahead and contact Idris Elba, see if he'd be interested.
Hell yeah, I'm down.
Wow. Well, thank you though. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, man. Thank you for hanging out. Again, appreciate you so much coming on. We've got some like paying the bills kind of stuff we're going to do before we wind it up. But I wanted to really let you know how much I appreciated having you on.
Thank you.
And I definitely want to do this again.
Okay. Just contact me. I'm always around. Bro. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Have a great night. Get some rest. And I'll try to catch a show in the morning if I'm up. I'm kind of a late sleeper, but I would definitely try to catch you in the morning. If not, I'll watch it watch it when it's done.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, brother. Everybody.
Good night, Keith. Thank you for being here, man. Well, how about we hear a little bit from the man himself, Mr. Doc. So we'll hear a little bit from Dark Angel Medical.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Doc Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
And if you go over to darkangelmedical.com, you make sure you use discount code Cryptid25 for 25% off your entire order. Man, I loved having Keith on. We've definitely got to get him back on.
Yeah, that was a good show.
I agree. I mean, I enjoy just hanging out and talking. And I've known Keith for a long time, and he's been a very avid supporter of my writing since I just had the one book on the table.
That he kind of just fits in with the way we talk about stuff anyway, and that was just,
which is exactly why my wife will tell you if Keith and I run into each other at a convention, she's lost me for at least an hour. Him and I start talking, and we're just she can't pry me away. We're just over there talking and laughing and talking about comics and books and everything else. You want to tell us a little bit about Scallywag?
Why, sure thing. Oh, as Doc was saying, or well, not as Doc was saying, as DA says this is we're proud to support our veteran-owned companies, and Scallywag Tactical, like Dark Angel Medical, is a veteran-owned company. Make fixed blades, folders, fillet knives, kitchen knives, combat knives, survival knives, any kind of knives that you could want to use from everyday carry to putting on your bug out bag. They've got a knife for you. I've had every kind of knife there is: Schrade, Gerber, Spyderco, you name it. I've had at least one of those blades. Some of those blades cost upwards of $200-300 or more. depending on where you go and where you buy them. But these Scallywag tactical knives are just as good, if not better, than any of those knives that I've had. This Jolly Roger right here cost me $15, and I had it almost a year and probably a couple of months, and still have not put an edge on it. Or have not had to put a sharpening knife or a stone on it. Still got it just as sharp a blade as the day I got it. And this is the one that I joined DA's club with, because I dropped it and tried to catch it, which is stupid on my part, and bled for about an hour. Doc laughed at me for the rest of, or he's still laughing at me about it. So, because I didn't have my Dark Angel medical kit with me. So get your Dark Angel medical kit when you get your Scallywag tactical knife.
Or at the very least, make sure you got some good Band-Aids on hand.
Yeah. So going over to scallywagtactical.com, check out the blemish blades. That's where I got this one from. The box was always messed up on it. The box was crushed or crunched or whatever. I mean, they couldn't sell it as brand new. So they put it on the blemish blades. You can get some really good knives and some really good deals. They got some good deals on, some of their good blades will go on sale sometimes. You get a really good deal. The Gunner's Mate, which is normally 300, right? 300.
Oh, well, it's over three. Yeah, it's usually well over 300.
Yeah, it's 149 right now while they got this run going. So go check them out. When you go to checkout, even if you're getting the discounts or the sales or whatever, put code DA Roberts 10 in, and I give you an extra 10% off. Let them know we sent you. If you read the books, you've heard DA mention this knife's in there, the Privateer, the Gunner's Mate, the Bounty. All those knives are in there for a reason. They're good.
Don Donaldson says the Bounty's in stock right now.
Ooh.
I'm going to go over and look, double check that.
But DA puts those knives in the book for a reason. Just like he puts the stuff that he puts in there, he puts in there because it's stuff that we use, we believe in, and we support.
The Bounty is in stock.
It's been a while since that one's been in stock.
The Bounty is in stock.
That's the sword, or the S word. You got yours close where you can show them the Bounty? Because we hadn't showed that one in a while.
Yeah, let me. I
figured you had it close.
Yeah, it's right here where I can get to it fairly quickly, but it's got a bunch of stuff on top of it. It won't take me but a second. Here she is.
Folks, that's what you call a cutting utensil.
And it is stupid sharp. You can get both hands on the handle. I could, I'm not gonna, but you can take the hair off your arm with this thing. It is wicked sharp.
Let me correct that. He's not gonna again.
I'm not gonna again. It wasn't the Bounty I did it with the first time.
It was just a Scallywag tactical knife. So
it was the Privateer that did it the first time.
Gotta watch them Privateers. They'll get you.
Yeah, they will.
And DA's got another Scallywag tactical knife that is a little bit special. Just got a little something extra on it. So if you get your blade from Scallywag and you want maybe something like that on it, DA, you know a guy?
I know a guy.
I know. So I'll just segue into that before you go to Ken if you want to.
Okay.
Doc, DA, and I have kind of come together with Lone Wolf Customs with the laser engraving and the woodworking and all that stuff. We've started I got a laser engraver where we can pretty much put anything you want on just about anything you want. Toombs has put the link up to my email. If you got something you want engraved, we've got DA. I wasn't prepared. If you got your flasks or any of that stuff that you can.
Oh, I've got 2 of the flasks right here.
There's the one with that's the 6 ounce or the 8 ounce flask, I think.
I think it's the 8 ounce.
8 ounce flask. There's one with the Dark Hunt or Wild Hunt and the Dark Frontiers logos. You just saw the knife, the mini jack with the Wild Hunt logo on it. Those are our drinking glasses that we do our toast with. It's got DAX Machination on one side and D.A. Roberts author on the other side. So there's not really a whole lot of stuff that we can. Matter of fact, I do have some of the stuff here. We also got hats.
Those are badass.
Got I can't remember which hand I got. It's backwards. Got the Dark Angel Medical. Got the Wild Hunt, and we can pretty much do any kind of other stuff. If you want the Dark Frontiers logo on a hat, let us know. Shoot us an email. Shoot me or DA1 an email. Let us know what you want. We'll work on pricing and get it to you. Holidays are coming up. So that's all I got to say about that.
Well, our other affiliate is Ken Brock over at brockblades.com. And let me change the sign there. Ken makes custom blades. They're all made on the forge behind his house. They're all made to order, and no 2 of them are identical. They are custom handmade blades. So whereas Scallywag blades are mass produced, they are high quality. They're fantastic knives. No 2 blades from Ken are alike. You can order custom blades, or you can order ones he's already got made, but no 2 will ever be identical. And they're functional works of art. They're beautiful, but they're also very, very effective. So if you know anybody that's an outdoorsman or a veteran or a first responder, the gift of a custom blade is something that'll be treasured for a long time, especially with the holidays coming up. I would definitely be looking at brockblades.com. And if you use discount code cryptid10 on your purchase, you'll get 10% off your order. Or if you order a custom blade, make sure you mention that you heard about Brock Blades from here at DAX Machina, and he'll make sure you get your 10% off even on the custom blades. So definitely check those out. And there's a reason that we choose the ones we choose. It's not just a matter of us picking people that we think the products are cool. Yes, I do endorse these products because they're stuff I've carried. I've carried a Dark Angel kit on my duty belt. I've used Scallywag and Brock blades. They're fantastic stuff. We also support them because they're first responders and veterans, and that's something that I think that we don't do enough. We definitely need to support our veterans and our first responders more, because they've earned it. They've earned it in blood. They've earned it in their blood, sweat, and tears. So because we're and Robbie will tell you, and Doc will tell you, even Steve, if he was here, will tell you, we're huge supporters, and we're very proud to be supporters of the 22 a Day Foundation and the Till Valhalla project, because these projects actually, unlike a lot of charities that claim that they're helping veterans, these put 95% of the money right back into veterans charities. Some of these other charities, if you donate $10, $1 of it might make it to the veterans. But Till Valhalla Project and the 22 a Day Foundation, they put as much as they possibly can back into helping veterans. And they're getting service dogs for guys. They're helping get artificial limbs. They're also helping in a very critical role of helping veterans get the help they need, because we lose 22 a day. And that is 22 too many. 22 veterans a day give up their fight, and we lose 22 a day to suicide. And I know, a lot of us have had those moments. And there's, a few people that are very near and dear to me that are in dark places. I mean, hell, I've been there myself. Robbie's been there. We've all been there. But just know there are people that care. You can reach out to the people that or you can reach out to us. We would much rather help you than hear about something tragic, because 22 days is too many. And if you look at the Officer Down Memorial page, you'll see the line of duty deaths of officers as well as officer suicides, and it's just tragic. We are losing far too many first responders and veterans to this, and it's something that I'm definitely hold very dear to me. I've seen too many folded flags handed out. I've been to too many funerals, and as inevitable as I know that is, it's going to happen. It's all the more tragic when we lose one to suicide, and especially since, you just taking the time to text somebody, tell them you're thinking about them, or tell them how much you care about them, might be that thing that keeps them off the ledge. So reach out to the people that that were veterans and first responders, and let them know you care about them. Because again, that one text might be what keeps them off the ledge. And to wrap things up, I want to thank Keith for being on the show. I want to thank Robbie for hanging out with me and acting like an idiot with me. But we've been ending the show with a toast. And we didn't do it last night because we were playing a video game. But tonight we are. There's an old Irish drinking song called The Parting Glass. And when you first hear the lyrics, it basically talks about the end of the night. He's going home after when the bar is closing. But when you read between the lines, when you read those lyrics, he's raising a glass to those who can't lift the glass anymore. He's saying goodbye to the ones we have lost along the way. And that's something that's very special to me. And I'm very, very happy that we end the program on a toast now. So if you got a glass, I would hope you guys would raise it with me. Robbie's got one. Doesn't matter what it is. Just raise your glass to those we've lost and those that we will lose along the way, and the memory of those that we cared about that have come and gone. But since it fell unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night, and joy be to you all. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAX Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.